This is otherwise state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Wrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Wrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Wrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show. Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. I'm Tony Hager, joined by Ross Bartachek. This podcast presented by MyHouse Sports Gear, dropping all kinds of gear. They were at the IWCOA, giving away a team singlet. I think they gave away 12 singlets. I didn't end up hearing who won that, but MyHouse was definitely in Iowa. They are coming. They are trying to put their footprint here, so check them out, MyHouse. But Ross, overall weekend, things got started off with Agony and Ames. I guess would be the next event after the Night of Conflict, leading up into this high school season. What are your overall thoughts by looking at the results?
Overall, obviously there were some upsets. There were some matches that went the way most people thought they would. I guess you could call maybe a couple that. Like Brody Teskey over Travis Ford Melton. I don't know whether to call that an upset or not since Teskey was up a weight. Obviously, kind of a big deal to see Verk-Liren go down. Verk was red hot, losing to Austin O'Connor of Illinois. So that was kind of a big match. And, man, I thought for sure it was going to be Tristan Lara's time. I thought he had it. I thought he was going to take down Jason Renneria and get into these flow rankings, but no dice.
Yeah, free Tristan Larry. I still think he should be in the ranking. He hasn't put it together in the big matches. Either is Drew Bennett. I feel like those two guys are going to crack the rankings at some point this season. They just got to find those big matches, and they got to break through. So, on social media on Saturday, some things got blown out of proportion. I tweeted a picture of the actual venue of the mat, which if you look at it, my tweet said, did anybody fall off the stage? I wasn't hoping that somebody fell off the stage. There was none of that. I did not hope that somebody did just because IA Wrestle wasn't a part of the event. If you look at it, it should have been a high school mat. There was not enough room in case somebody did barge somebody off the mat. They would have fell off the dang thing. So I was legitimately concerned by putting a college mat on there. So I just want to squash that.
I saw the photo, and that was kind of the first inkling I had, and I even showed my wife because I was like, man, look at this. It just made me nauseous a little bit just looking, but obviously everything turned out okay. But it wasn't what I always think about, when I saw that right away was like, man, I wish they had the push out because, keep action centered on that mat. It just made me nervous. Nothing too bad, but
yeah, I think just the Gomez family just assumed that I was hating on the event because you saw Austin tweet at me just hating, and then of course the Gomez family chimed in as well. So and a friendly post on Facebook that Hector put out there. At the end of the day, these events are supposed to be about the kids. It's supposed to be about Iowa wrestling. Not Iowa Hawkeyes, not Iowa State, not Northern Iowa. And what got turned into is this became a competition. This became a competition when Hector went out and said, our event is better than the Night of Conflict. It's better than the Conflict at Carver. We shouldn't be trying to have it as a competition. All three events should happen on their own, and we should be packing these places to get the most people in front of these kids. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Maybe a little over 300 people is what I was told at the venue. So if this thing wants to grow, if they want it to grow, IA Wrestle is going to have to be involved in that, in my opinion. And we want to be a part of it. We tried to be a part of it. There was maybe some miscommunication through emails, through the Cyclone Wrestling Club. I was personally told that if we wanted power for our computer, which we would have to cover the whole event, that we would have to set up in the concession stand. So I'm not going to set up in a freaking concession stand and cover in an event. So we don't just show up to events to watch it or to take pictures. We show up to do play-by-play, get as much interviews as possible, and if we don't have that access, then we're not going to come.
I would say, yeah, it's more or less the way we cover an event. We just, kind of like you're saying, we don't really want to come in, watch it, recap it afterward. That's not kind of what we do. That's not our style. We obviously we do our live tweets. We do play-by-play threads. That's, something I think we're kind of known for. We do them for you and I, Iowa duels. We always have, those. We did it for the Night of Conflict this year. It's just, that's kind of how we run our coverage, and that's kind of what people like from us. Anybody can sit at home and watch it on Flow and tweet the results. So you don't really see the benefit to doing that if that's all we were going to do. They obviously had other people doing that anyway. I do think some of the blame maybe is on us, Tony. Like you said, we're about promoting the sport in Iowa. And maybe we should shoulder some of the blame for only 300 people showing up. Just in general, the promotion of the event. I will say it was a little difficult from our end. I think most people that listen to this podcast know that I produce a majority of the content on IA Wrestle. There was, I know we kind of had this problem with the Night of Conflict where we had to shuffle some matches, but the Agony and Ames lineup seemed like it was constantly shuffling, constantly changing. And with the season, getting here into gear where we got high school stuff coming, we got college stuff coming, it's really time consuming to kind of like write a matchup, talk about that match and break it down, only to have to kind of switch it up, 2 weeks later. So it was a little difficult. I'm sure they're going to learn from this experience, and next year their matchups that they put out, maybe they'll be a little bit more set in stone, and maybe we can do a little bit more. But, you got to look at it from a time perspective from us. There's only so much we can do, and if things are always changing, it's hard to put out a good product that you feel good about if you're not sure that it's going to be, useful a day from now, 2 days from now. You know what I'm trying to say, folks.
Yeah, well, and we don't have subscription-based. We're not selling any kind of magazines, newspapers, premier content. Everything on our website is free, and we don't make money going to events. We need to have that live coverage in order for people to come to our website. So I guess if that's an explanation for why we weren't there, then you've got it, I guess. And if you got any other issues, please give me a call. But it has nothing to do with us not supporting Cyclone Wrestling Club because that or the Cyclones, because that's proven on our content on our IA Wrestle. And we've been to events, and I've done stuff for the Cyclone Wrestling Club out of my own time to benefit them as well. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk with the Cyclone Wrestling Club face-to-face and talk through some of these differences. So going forward, Iowa State the night before that event held their wrestle-offs, and there were some people that I was really excited to see. I wanted to see Ian Parker. I want to see him compete. He was able to take on Wesley in an exhibition match. He won that by fall. Some other people that I was interested in seeing was Danny Vega. He won tech fall over Baker. Another match was Kanan Storr against John Meeks. John Meeks has been, he's an Iowa guy. Everyone's been wanting to see him in the lineup. He hasn't been able to make it consistently, or they haven't put him in the lineup consistently against Kanan Storr, who arguably one of their best recruits in that class. So to see him get beat by John Meeks, I think was 6-2. I didn't get to watch the match. I didn't see it on Periscope or anything, but those were a couple matches that I was interested in seeing. And what do you think about 97? Colbray coming in and taking down Harrington.
Reports from the match were that Colbray just kind of got Harrington into a dangerous position where he was going to get pinned, not necessarily potentially dangerous, but just looking like it was going to be a fall. Marcus just didn't want to fight it and risk injuring himself. Or it's kind of what I heard about it. I obviously didn't get to see it, but Sammy Colbray showed up. I think it's still a big result to see him come in and do that to a top 20 guy in the nation. I think, if you're an Iowa State fan looking at your wrestle-offs, you're excited about that class they've been talking about coming in. I mean, like you said, Vega and Parker got wins in exhibition matches. Kanan Story, you said, was right there with John Meeks. Zuma, Baptista. Iowa State tends to find these, Dante Rodriguez was one of these guys too, but they weren't like top 100 recruits. They get to Iowa State and they turn him into a solid contributor. I mean, he lost by 2 points to Ronaldo Rodriguez Spencer, the 157-pounder starter for them last year. So he's already right there. Colbray came in, beat Harrington. I mean, just really good results up and down the lineup. We do know Gannon Gremmel's kind of dealing with an injury. That's probably why he wasn't wrestling off. I think he had a procedure done this offseason. So he's coming back. He's going to miss the first few opens, but he'll come back soon.
Overall, I think I learned a few things that we didn't know in those matches with Colbray, and see Pistano at 65, solid match by him, and I like to see who I was really high on was Nathan Boston. I've been high on him since he's been at Iowa State, and he took Earl Hall to tiebreaker. He ended up losing 5-4 to Earl Hall. So I don't know if Nathan Boston has any chance of getting down to 125 at all, but I really like Nathan Boston a lot. Just unfortunately, Earl Hall got an extra year, and you can't All-American. So that's definitely great for the for Cyclones. And then they also the same weekend, big weekend up in Ames with the event that they were putting on by the Cyclone Wrestling Club, Wrestle Offs. They picked up Ethan Smith, a recruit from Maryland. And, this is somebody that I didn't even know on the radar, hadn't heard the name at all. Is this somebody that you've heard of as far as that was on campus before? I haven't heard this name been floated around Iowa State.
No, it kind of took me by surprise as well. And I would have to think this is a little bit of a reaction from losing the Anthony Mantanona commitment. We all know Anthony was a top 10 recruit at 170 pounds. Bring in Ethan Smith, who's number 8 at 170. He told us in his interview when he committed that he's going to project at 174. So, Marcus Coleman is coming in, also ranked at 170. But I think Iowa State is really committed to bringing in a 174-pounder in this class because they think Coleman's going to be up at 84. We saw, that was kind of the plan with Mantanona, and now when I see Smith come in at 170 and he thinks he's going to be 74, I think if you're, an Ames fan, Iowa State fan, you can expect that Marcus Coleman's probably going to be asked to grow into 184, which he's got a, nice frame, so it's not a tall task, but he's going to have some work ahead of him.
I think the Cyclones aren't done either with recruits. I think they're going to be landing some other kids here. I don't know how the heck they're doing it. Almost kind of like the Penn State situation. Not as high as recruits, I guess, as you could say. I don't know. I just feel like Penn State's got a real established team, and they're still getting top recruits. And Iowa State's really got a lot of really young talent coming in. So they're figuring out a way to get it done up in Ames, that's for sure. Another kid. Speaking of recruiting, we broke the news last night, right after he got out of a haunted house, that Zach Barnes, guy that we are huge on, had to have him in the night of conflict after his summer. Zach Barnes committed to Campbell University to be under Kerry Colott. A little bit of an Iowa tie there with Garrett Kiley, who used to be with the Cyclones, who I think did a lot of recruiting for the Cyclones. At least I had a lot of good back and forth with him, but so Garrett Kiley's doing some good things down there for Campbell, wanting to start a little pipeline in Iowa, and this is a good way to start with Zach Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes isn't the first one to have Campbell show up on his list. We saw Wyatt Wright, who ended up at Nebraska, but Kiley slowly getting into the minds of, telling these Iowa kids to look out east, to give Campbell a shot. And I'm going to admit that I was surprised. I didn't see Barnes going to Campbell. I thought it was going to be UNI or maybe Grandview. I thought those were probably the top two places. I would have put Campbell third. So this one kind of took me by surprise, but you hit me up last night and you said, hey, it's definitely going down. So, I mean, that's pretty big.
I thought it was, like, you're right, Grandview, UNI, both staffs I think felt really confident they were going to land Zach Barnes, stay in state, but Zach went to a visit last weekend, and it also obviously sold him. Getting out of Iowa really sold him. I think he wanted just to be a part of a growing program, the way I kind of got it. Like he didn't want to go to something that's really already established. Campbell, this is the first guy out of Iowa that they're grabbing. They got the first guy in the All-Star Classic. First guy to have the opportunity to be an All-American for Campbell. So I think he kind of liked to be a part of something growing and getting out of Iowa. So that's what I feel is the most underrated Iowa wrestler in our state right now. Way underranked nationally. So this is a huge get. His stock's only going to rise this year, this summer. So congrats to Zach Barnes, Southeast Polk, getting another Division I wrestler off the board. So with that said, though, we don't have a whole lot of top seniors in our 550. I think you were tweeting a little bit about it, that we've got less than 10 left in the Fab 50 that are uncommitted. And who do you think is next to pop here?
Ooh, next that's a tricky question. The top six remaining, that's Drew and Bryce West. They're both in the top 10. You got Brock Henderson of Northland in the top 25. Then you got some more top 50 guys: Austin Yant, Waverly Shell Rock, Brady Kiner, Southeast Warren, Isaac Bartell of Mason City, 42. So there's quite a few guys left in the top 50. I know Henderson of Northland's looking at UNI, Minnesota, and Cornell University, not Cornell College. But so he's kind of looking at D1, projecting at 125. We do know the West Twins visited Purdue. Do you remember where else they were going to visit, Tony?
I don't. I know there's a lot of people hard on Bryce. It's just a matter of if there's a double offer there for probably both of them to go. Bryce, I wrote about it. I Wrestle article about potential 3-timers. He's in there, and Drew had to wrestle Alex, but that stopped his quest for a 3-time. But I don't know. I think Bryce West and Drew West are going to be the next to pop here. I think the other ones are a little bit waiting to perform a little bit, wait to see how their state wrestling tournament goes, to see if they can maybe rise their stock a little bit and maybe pick up a little bit of a partial scholarship somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like it was a couple schools out east. I want to say Edinburgh was one of the other places that maybe the West Twins are going to visit. And for some reason, Appalachian State comes to my mind. There was a fourth school these are all visits that were going to take place, and I think that was 2 Saturdays ago. So, some of these visits might have already happened, but we do know they are already done with their Purdue visit. A couple more schools out east, and then one more that it's escaping me.
Hopefully we'll see the West boys maybe commit before the season gets going here, midway through the season. Once you get going, it's kind of really put on the back burner at that point, which we got, 2 weeks left here before the first whistle blows in the wrestle room officially. So we might not see that until after the season. Maybe they're waiting for their stock to rise a little bit in this class. Let's move on to some action this week. Lots of wrestling's getting started. Division I, Division III, Cornell versus Simpson on tomorrow night. On football fields going down. Upper Iowa's wrestling on the football field this week. So the 2 events going down on Thursday night. So I think this is a lot of people took a lot away from Iowa obviously doing this outside duel. More and more people are realizing that you got to promote these duels, and you've got to do it a different way than, hey, just show up at our gym and hopefully we get to put on a show. People are expecting now to put on a show. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and they're picking two good programs. Cornell is obviously been a pretty solid program under Coach DeRoe. I think Nate Hansen's doing some great things at Simpson's, getting that program on the rise. So, I mean, it's a good Division III battle here in our state. Like you said, a lot of people are kind of taking that method that Iowa used at Kinnick, and they're seeing the draw. And I want to say, I couldn't find it in the article that we put up, Tony, but I wanted to say that there was they were offering free entry to someone. Do you remember who that was? KJ Pilcher tweeted it out. I know.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like some sort of school, like if you were a middle school or something, like I'm gonna try and look it up real quick.
While you're doing that, the Grandview Open is this weekend. NAIA, there's going to be multiple divisions that are going to be coming to Altoona, Iowa, but this is an event that's growing and growing and growing here in Iowa. And we saw Andrew Long versus Logan Ryan last year, which was obviously one of the most watched matches that we did see at the event. But some of these brackets, were 30, 40, 50 kids in it. So I'm expecting there to be some big matchups again. They had over 300 wrestlers last time, and I do know that UNI is bringing their full team. So we're going to see their full team. Going to be probably a wrestle off for them. We'll see some of those redshirt freshmen, the freshmen, and then Iowa's bringing some of their freshmen, and Iowa State's bringing their freshmen as well. So be interesting to see who they put in the freshman class, the open class. You'd hope that a lot of those D1 wrestlers are going to be wrestling in the open, but we'll be there on Saturday from weigh-ins to the last whistle. We're going to be bringing all kinds of coverage from the Grandview Open. So did you figure out what it was?
No, KJ's been tweeting way too much about the Cubs for me to find this.
Yeah, he's got so many duties. I mean, football, Cubs. So he's busy.
He's busy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's what you hit on, the biggest question. Because last year we saw, Kemmer. Yeah, who were some of the other Iowa recruits that we were kind of like, hey, man, maybe they should be in the open division. We saw them in the freshman division. They kind of ran away with things, like Cash Wilkie would have been a guy that maybe you would have liked to see in the open division. But, so I think that'll be the most interesting. And, seeing Alex Marinelli have a chance to match up with UNI's Cooper Moore. I mean, Marinelli's getting picked to be an All-American. Cooper Moore was a match away from being there 2 years ago. So if we could see that matchup go down, I mean, I think there'd be a ton of fans in the state that would want to watch that match. So hopefully, I mean, that match can go down, and hopefully you or Critter or someone's right there to get that match on video again.
We got to do it. A lot of people want to see these young freshmen. Ton of talent in the state of Iowa right now at these young kids, and we're going to see. I think we're going to see some ex-Iowa wrestlers go up against each other on Friday. Iowa State, South Dakota State, in Brookings. Bono is fired up about this. We talked to him a little bit at the Night of Conflict. Him and Reeder are pumped about it. And but at 141, Henry Pohlmeyer is going to get the call from Johnson, state champ. Had a couple bad years. Didn't go the way he was. He was cutting a ton of weight, but he's up at 141 now, and he's thick and not having to cut a ton of weight. Him and Gross go at it quite a bit in the wrestling room, and from what I've heard, they've been throwing bows, gotten fights, fist fights even, in the room. So he'll be taking on what I think might be Gabe Moreno. I thought that he wasn't going to be ready based off of media day when I was up there. But I asked KJ, and he says that he's bringing Gabe. And I think if it comes down to them needing those points, he's going to put Moreno in over Meeks. So that'll be a big matchup to look at. What do you think is going to happen at 33? Do you think Boston get the go or?
So yeah, we all know that Earl Hall can't wrestle this duel due to getting that 6th year, or not a 6th year. I guess it's his senior year back. It's kind of weird terminology, but. We know Earl Hall's out. It's going to be Nathan Boston. But here's, you see, Tony, this is what I got. It's a conflicting report to Henry Pohlmeyer for sure going at 141. Because what I heard is that we have the potential to see Seth Gross at 141 if he's not down to 33 yet.
Ooh.
I heard that, he's doing good with his weight, but he just might not be down. He might not be able to make 33 right now, this early in November. So I heard it could be Zeke Andrade at 133, and then Gross would be at 41. So there's a chance of that happening. I'm not calling it a certainty, but I heard it's a possibility.
I talked to Bono on Sunday, so we're talking just a couple days here. So I don't know where you're getting your info. Maybe they're just trying to mess with us, and that way we don't give information to the Cyclones. Who knows? But this duel's got I think potential for a good little rivalry. Obviously, Bono, Reeder, KJ. I don't know if there's any hatred there or they don't like each other. I'm not really sure. I don't think it'd be like a Schwab versus Brands type duel where that there's going to be spit flying. Not that they say that they hate each other, but I don't think they like each other. So.
Right. It's like when Mark Perry comes in to wrestle or to coach, it seems like he's always John at the Brands, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the duel 2 years ago, Big Ten finals between Clark and Richards got heated. Yeah, I mean, that's what I love to see when two guys that, they're not quite, Jackson didn't coach Bono, but you know what I'm saying. I love it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that deep down that there is some words said so we can get a little bit more of a rivalry in that Big 12, in that, the addition to South Dakota State. So, 133, 141, be interesting to see who goes there. Are there any other matches that you got circled of in your preview?
157, it's going to be Ronaldo Rodriguez Spencer for Iowa State, but could be Brett By, a freshman for South Dakota State. So that's kind of be an interesting match to see where Ronaldo's going to, if he's going to take that step forward, or there could be a young freshman coming in, that could just kind of seeing if Ronaldo can go into the upper part of this in the conference here. And then Colston de Blasi probably getting the start at 165, kind of sounding like maybe Dane Pistano might not be down, or I guess they don't want to make him, cut down to 65 again. I don't know what you're hearing, but I kind of heard it might be de Blasi to kind of save Pistano from cutting again.
I would imagine. That's what I would imagine too. So, and they've got a whole weekend up in the Dakotas. They're taking on North Dakota State as well. I think that's on Sunday, or is that Saturday? Yeah. So, looking at those matchups, there's nothing really too exciting out of those matchups. I think the SDSU is going to be more exciting. I think we're going to see some of those younger guys get to compete at NDSU. So I think you'll see maybe you'll see Colbray in there. I don't know, Straw.
Well, we've seen KJ pull a red shirt before, and if Colbray, if he can maybe look like an All-American, I don't know why it would go against everything we've seen. So yeah. It's definitely a possibility. I would think. I'm going to put it in the preview as a possibility.
He acted like that. They don't need to do that. So, but there's always that what if. So I don't know if we'll see it too early, but yeah, with the whole Meek situation, we definitely know he's not scared to do that. So, but yeah, let's quick little podcast, episode 70 of Potentially Dangerous. High school wrestling gets underway. Preseason nationals is going down as well. So this is a crazy weekend. We're going to have a full preview from the freshman, sophomore division and the junior and senior division up. That's going to be up today and Thursday. So be on the lookout for who's going to be at that event. Record number of kids, I feel like. There's 100... How many? I think there's 100 kids, I think, is what I saw. So there's not a ton of ranked kids, not a ton of nationally ranked kids. So be interesting to see how tough of a tournament it is. I know Dylan D'Amelio is coming in. That's a guy that we had at Night of Conflict who I really like. But as far as Iowa guys, we're going to see Cade DeVos clear up to 132 pounds. So he's definitely growing. So Cade DeVos, Southeast Polk, this will be the first time he's competing there. And, Anthony Zach is a guy that I like at 152 pounds. Kind of ran into some minefields last year. Trying to think if there's anything else out there. 106 is going to be a very tough weight class. Usually is at preseason nationals in that freshman, sophomore, and we're waiting to see that junior, senior preview here. So, but lots of things. Are you going to go to that, or what do you think you're going to do this weekend?
I want to go to the Grandview Open. I'm trying to go to the Grandview Open. So that's what I'm kind of the angle I'm working, because I really want to see these true freshmen. I want to see UNI's full squad. I think that's just a really good tournament to not be at. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Anything else?
Next week could be a huge week, Tony. As we all know, signing day starts next week. I don't know if it's the 11th is National Signing Day, but I think you can start signing your letter on the 9th is what I'm thinking. Maybe it is the 8th, but anyway, Iowa, they're in on Brady Berge, they're in on Jacob Warner, and both of those guys are supposed to commit, before National Signing Day. Flow Wrestling has said they're going to come out to their school, their home, and they're going to do something with either of those guys. Dayton Fix is another guy that's, looking to a domino to fall, but no Iowa school in his list there. But, Warner and Berge, if they go to Iowa, all of a sudden they got 3 guys in the top 10 in this recruiting class. So it could be a really huge week next week.
Yeah, and you've got Iowa Media Day today, so those videos are going to be popping up. I'm sure you're going to be busy with that as well. So lots of stuff. Pumped for the season to get started. Pumped for people to be coming to the site daily. We'll be bringing you as much content as possible, and look for those breaking news from those top recruits from Ross, myself, or Lars typically on our site. You can give us a follow at IARussell.